So welcome to the Business Spotlight Series. My name's Mark McNulty, president of Action Coach Bluegrass in Southern Indiana. And today I have Terri Paige, the CEO and co-founder of the Medical Transformation Center, as my guest. Today we're going to be talking to Terri about her business, her journey to business ownership, challenges, best practices, and share a peek into what it's really like to build and operate a business. If this is your first time on our channel, be sure to like and subscribe so you get notifications when we drop new conversations just like this one. So Terri, welcome and thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell our listeners a little bit about your background and Medical Transformation Center.
Well, actually, sometimes I jokingly refer to myself as a recovering accountant, actually. That's my original formal education, and I did function as an accountant for many years. But what it gave me, actually, I know a lot of people will say, "Gosh, you don't seem like an accountant, a typical one." But it was something that I was good at, and at the time I was going to college, I needed to just kind of really take a straight line path, and so that's what I did. But that education really gave me the backbone and the background to be a business owner. So I'm really grateful for that. Medical Transformation Center has been in existence for a little over 10 years, actually. And it was born out of a joint venture that my husband and I started many, many years ago. Really, the reason I needed to go to work quickly is because he wanted to go to medical school, and we've been together a very long time. Actually, we grew up together and started life early together. So I was an accountant while he was in medical school and residency. But we always knew one day that we would go somewhere. We kind of wanted a little town near a big town. And we'd hang a shingle and start from scratch. And I would do the business side, and he would do the blood and guts, as I like to say affectionately. And, we just started. And we did that actually many, many years ago, actually back in 1992 out in Oldham County. We had moved to Louisville for him to do his residency at U of L. And at the time, it was a fairly new residency in internal medicine and pediatrics. So he did a double residency, double board certification, the whole thing. And we went out to Oldham County and started from scratch, zero patients, painted all the walls, hung the shingle, waited, kind of waited for people to come. And they did. And it grew from there. But the genesis for Medical Transformation Center, especially after the changes that happened in healthcare after 2008, that was really the impetus for a lot of that, as well as some personal health issues that I was struggling with, which led us on a quest actually to look for more, expanded ways that we could really help people be healthy, as opposed to just we put a Band-Aid on something. We fixed an immediate problem, but really to understand, using many different tools, how we could really help people thrive and have their optimal health.
Awesome. So what's it like? So tell us a little bit about what's it like being in business with your spouse.
We've been in business so long together. Honestly, I can't imagine not being in business together. People wonder, well, gosh, is it all business? Do you talk about business all the time? And sometimes we do at home. We like to take long drives and talk about it, because that's an opportunity for us to just kind of like debrief, but we balance that with a lot of fun. I will tell you, we've been married, gosh, 42 years, a little over 42 years. We have 8 children.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We have 8 children, a lot of action, 3 grandchildren. So, we kind of like each other. So that helps, right? To be in business with your spouse. And it just works. Our kids have been involved in our businesses over the years in different capacities. And, so we've really tried to make it a family affair, so that, it's not just, oh, mom and dad are over here talking about business and everybody else is over here. And that's really, that seemed to help us thrive in that environment.
Okay, great. So tell us about Medical Transformation Center. What makes you special?
Well, what makes us special? I just have to take what our patients say about this too. And it's really why we started, is again, because we wanted to offer people a broader set of choices. with Medical Transformation Center, we actually we don't replace someone's primary care relationship, for example. We require our patients to keep those wonderful existing arrangements that they have with their primary care physicians. People come to us because, there are kind of buckets that people come to us for. So there are folks that come to us and we see kids or adults. So if we see children, we actually never see a well child. If we see a child in Medical Transformation Center, they're going to fall in that category where, maybe they have recently gotten a diagnosis and their parents really are unwilling to accept the status quo and want to understand maybe a little bit more of that backstory of why they have that diagnosis. And if they can do something to help that little body heal itself, or to at least have the best possible outcome other than maybe just manage with medications or, just this is the way it is. So, they could have a diagnosis, they could have a mystery illness no one's been able to figure out. Or, like GI issues or ADD, ADHD, weird allergies, things like that, fatigue, those types of things that all of the regular tests don't really bear anything out. So that's one reason why people might come to see us, whether it's a child or an adult, those types of symptoms, or maybe, like we see a lot of adults with autoimmune diseases or, hormone issues, fertility issues, GI. We see a whole lot of GI because it doesn't have to be the foregone conclusion of, I'm just on this med the rest of my life. We really believe that the body can heal itself if you give the body what it needs at a cellular level. And that can look a lot of different ways. I mean, we have not thrown away our traditional, paradigm of medicine that you need. I mean, sometimes that's the right tool. Sometimes that's absolutely the right tool. But what we've done is we've added to our toolbox with areas like root cause medicine, looking at the why, going back, going upstream to understand the why, or, trying to understand what type of regenerative therapy could work well for this person, whether it's peptides or stem cells or exosomes, things like that. And again, though, taking a real deep dive into gut health, which is huge and important for a myriad of issues. And then genetics. I mean, we do a lot of genetic type work, just looking at predispositions and propensities for, like, oh, okay, your genetics maybe say you're predisposed to XYZ. What do we need to do now to head that off at the pass? Or are those predispositions causing these symptoms? And how can we circumvent that to get your body to function optimally? So that's a lot, I know, just a whole lot of things. To ask me a question and I'm happy to.
No, that's interesting. So adults, so what's the relationship between, primary care and you, and how do your patients know when to go where?
Okay. That's a great question. So primary care is more for your acute care needs. It's more, I'm going to say transactional, right? You go because you have a sinus infection. You go because, you have a bladder infection or, you have the flu, that type of thing. It's more in that regard. And again, that's absolutely appropriate for your primary care relationship. Ours is more about how can we optimize you? What tools do we have? So, I mean, for example, we have a lot of folks, that are going into menopause or andropause, which is the male version of that, right? As we get older. And so if you were going to look at the bell curve, for example, of our patient base, right, it's in that, I'm going to say 40 to 65 range. That's the biggest part of our bell curve. So those folks in that area that maybe the younger folks are watching their parents age not so gracefully and they want to figure out what can I do today to really optimize my health so that hopefully I can avoid some of that stuff. Or, folks on the other end of the spectrum, which is, where I am, we're going, okay, I want to contribute and, be present for as long as possible, God willing, right? We're not really in control, but we are in control of some things, right? We can take responsibility. And so I want to be as responsible as I can with my own health so that I can contribute and enjoy my grandchildren or travel or whatever that next phase looks like and not be, beholden to a stack of meds and, a lot of physical therapy appointments or things like that because I'm non-functional.
Okay. So how do you market your business? How do you get the word out? How do people find you?
In the beginning, it was a lot of talks and networking and so forth to let people know. We were fortunate in that we had a long history of quality primary care out in Oldham County. We'd been out there so many years and we had the reputation of, we saw all the regular things, but people actually came to us because they had more of the mystery or the weirder things. That was sort of our reputation, especially in those last 5 to 10 years of that business. And so we had that, that benefit. But, really it was word of mouth initially and just letting people know. And, once people realized, I mean, and there was a progression between when we left the insurance-based primary care world and went full time into what we're doing. But when people heard and realized, and then, now there's so much word of mouth, which, I will tell you that over 90% of the folks that come to see us are because somebody else told them, whether the other person was a patient or whether they were somebody who knew somebody that we had been helpful to. But we do all the other things too, right? We're on the circuit. We do social like we were talking about earlier. I do some Great Day Live, which I love, just educating. It's really trying to educate people too, to show them that there's a whole world out there that's available if they want to take advantage of it in terms of, but there's also a lot of noise too. So you have to watch that. I mean, there's a lot of biohackers out there and things like that aren't necessarily giving you good evidence-based, science-based practices. So we, and especially now with TikTok and social media out there, right?
Mhm. So how do you and your husband kind of split roles and responsibilities as, co-founders? And obviously, he's the licensed
Yeah.
physician, but you've got some of your own certifications as well that I'm sure you bring to the practice, right?
Right, right. Well, he's our chief medical officer. And so he is, of course, in charge of, and we're both out there, uh, out on the frontier. I mean, the things that we bring to our patients are cutting edge. They're not available everywhere currently. I mean, the things that are becoming more mainstream now, we were doing, 10 years ago, which is, kind of fun. We're like, oh, yeah, that, well, let's keep going. Let's keep going. So one way that he's doing that obviously is by staying on that edge in terms of with the mastermind groups that we're part of and, his research and study and that type of thing. Of course, he sees patients. He sets the direction for our nurse practitioners, and we're getting ready to recruit another physician joining our team at the end of the summer, and our clinical team. And we've grown, gosh, well, we built a building in 2021 and we moved in the building with 6 folks and now we're up to 18. So, it is expanding. Our team is expanding. So he sets that direction. So if you just think of him as setting the scientific direction and then put the other hat on me. But I am a certified lifestyle coach. So I do work with people on and peptides and regenerative therapy. So I do work with people in that realm in terms of coaching them on shifting and making lifestyle changes. But that business component, I mean, he's not in.
Right. Okay. So tell us about your team.
Oh, well, it's been fun. I will tell you that this is you know, I don't know, it may be particular to my personality. I've always been of the mindset that, I have to be responsible for everything, right? Like, oh, it's up to me. I have to do it all, or I don't want to bother you, or things like that. And this is probably the largest team. This is definitely the largest business venture that we
Mhm.
have ever had. This is kind of, we've kind of worked our way up right over the years. And, we've added really key quality folks. I have just, in the last year and some change, decentralized, which has been lovely. So now I have leadership in the clinical area. I have leadership in the patient services area. I hired a wonderful executive assistant, changed my life.
Good.
Who knew I didn't have to figure out all that Microsoft Word stuff, right? That's been really good. But we have RNs, we have registered nurses on our team. We have a licensed practical nurse, a medical assistant, and then just a really wonderful team that has been in healthcare, but really more with a customer service bent for
Okay.
many years. So it's been a blessing to have them.
Okay. So going back to starting even the business before this, so what possessed the two of you to say we're going to go into business for ourselves instead of the traditional hospital system or big practice where you're one of many
Yeah.
practitioners?
Well, I mean, this was a long time ago, right? It was
Yeah.
1992 initially. And, there was that at that period of time, there was this startup, it had kind of come from California of health maintenance organizations,
Mhm.
HMOs, and, Humana was buying up, practices and they had some employed physicians, but that back in 92, there were still a lot of independent practitioners then. So it wasn't this weird stretch, to do something
Right.
like that. And, I had grown up actually my dad he came from the Philippines and he was a physician. And so I grew up kind of in that same thing where we went out to a little town in Western Kentucky and literally painted the walls and did all the things. So I knew how to do that. I'd lived that life once already.
Mhm.
And, you know, I- we're both really independent people. So, being employees, it's kind of hard for
Right.
us, and it's, of course, as right, it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's really, especially to be able to navigate and to take care of folks in the way that you think you should has
Mhm.
been really the biggest reward.
So 10 years ago, you made that pivot
Mhm.
to medical transformation center versus standard
Insurance-based primary
typical
care. Mhm.
insurance-based primary care. So what was that making that decision like? And what were some of the challenges of making that pivot?
Well, it was a step process, okay? Like a lot of things, it was a step process. Like I had said earlier, I had struggled with some health issues, especially after the birth of our last child. And really it came down to I needed to make changes in my diet, in the way that, in our lifestyle, etc. Or I could just, stay on the endless supply of medications for a long, long time, and that was not an option. And when we started to shift our thinking and started to understand all of that on a broader basis, and actually there was a period of time I was staying home with our younger children. We actually made a decision in 2010 that we would try to incorporate a lot of this more proactive approach into the insurance-based primary care. So my job, my job was to go in and work for 1 year from in 2011. I was going to work 1 year. Okay. I was homeschooling at the time, by the way,
Oh,
the kids, right?
oh
So I said,
wow.
I'm just going to go to work for 1 year, 2011. I'm going to end it at the end of 2011. And I'm going to put all of this in. We're going to implement it. We're going to expand our team. We're going to be an insurance-based traditional primary care practice, but that really helps people focus on health and wellness. So we actually were going to do it in that model. And, again, that was in the middle of a lot of reform and a lot of changes and electronic health records and all the things that were happening in the insurance-based world at that time. So we started to put in workshops and programs and work with our patients. And my husband went and did another board certification and a fellowship in anti-aging, regenerative, and functional medicine. That's when I got my lifestyle coaching certification. And we thought, okay, we're off to the races. We're doing this, but it just got harder and harder to navigate paradigm in that
Hmm.
paradigm for a number of reasons. As you can imagine, when you're sitting down and working with someone on optimal wellness, that's not a 10-minute one problem visit. You
Right.
know, that's a conversation that takes some time and it's peeling of the onion and it's a back and forth and more of a relationship as opposed
Right.
to a transaction. And so as we started to realize, plus, there was a lot of pushback from, insurance companies on, well, why didn't you just do this? Why did you do this? Why didn't you just give that pill? So we said, okay, we're going to do some concierge medicine then at that point. So we actually had a little concierge subset practice that was the precursor to medical transformation center. And concierge model is a little different than just cash pay. I mean, you pay a retainer for
Right.
basically that longer time and that access and so forth, but you still bill insurance for those
Hmm.
visits. Okay. So we had a small concierge practice for a while, thinking, okay, this is the model. But it was still, still the same. I mean, it was hard for my husband too to wrap his head around, okay, for, to satisfy dotting the I's and crossing the T's for an insurance-based practice, I have to do these 5 things. But I really know that this one thing is the better thing for this patient.
Right.
So ultimately, we just decided, okay, this is too hard to run both. So we made a decision to sell our insurance-based primary care practice. And actually, we were one of the largest and the still standing one in the Louisville metro area. We were one of the largest primary care. We had 10,000 patients. I mean, it was a big one.
Wow.
And so we sold that in 2015. We had incorporated MTC in 2013, and we're still trying to run in tandem. And so ultimately, as we negotiated the deal, we ended up closing that deal in 2015. And my husband had to work for that entity for a little bit. That's kind of how that works when you sell a medical
Right.
practice.
Yeah.
So he worked with them for a couple of years, but we also kept like 1 day a week of medical transformation center patients. And then at the end of 2017, split off, and that's when MTC became full-time.
Okay.
And so it was an evolution. Yeah.
So how have you, so thinking about just medical transformation center, how have you had to change as an owner and as a leader from that 1 day a week part-time to, today and, 18 employees and growing? What kind of changes have you had to make as a, to be the owner that can run that and lead that?
A big change. I'm in case you haven't already picked up on this, I'm kind of a people pleaser, okay? I'm a people pleaser. I want everybody to be happy. I want everybody to be comfortable. I really don't want to put you out, if it's hard, I'll go ahead and do it, that kind of thing. That has been a nemesis for me as in trying to grow a large organization. So I've had to step up and balance that. I mean, I don't ever want to lose kindness, compassion, empathy, all of those good things, but I've had to learn how to balance that with, okay, here's what needs to be done. We're going to take care of this, more of that, just rocks are hard, water's wet type of a conversation, as opposed to the, let me sugarcoat it for you. That's been a big challenge.
So what are you doing to, as a leader and creating the culture, of your team? What are some of the things you're doing to attract employees to, as you're growing, you're adding employees, and, what kinds of things you do to attract and retain your team?
Well, it's important that whomever joins our team really has that growth mindset.
Mhm.
That they are really interested in expanding boundaries and looking outside the box, being flexible, and knowing that, they won't come into MTC and expect, okay, this is the way we do it. This is always the way we do it. It's never going to change. This is how we do it. I always tell folks when I interview them, if you're not comfortable with change, this is probably not a good fit for you. Another thing that we've done this, it's just one of many tools I know that are out there, but we do emergenetics is one thing
Right.
that we do, which is more about looking at people's natural tendencies, how they process, how they think, what they're kind of like a strength finders, if to use more of a
Okay.
mainstream tool idea. But in that regard, and I'll tell you, it was so eye-opening when we did it the first time as a team, to understand, because it helps you understand, really truly like the way people think and their, what's easiest for them. There's a pie, for example, chart, and it's just like, relational, conceptual, structural, and analytical, right? And
Mhm.
then you kind of lay everybody's pie charts together and understand the idea is you want a full complement. You want, a nice quarter of everybody so that you run as a really well team, and then you tap into people's strengths. And that's something that we regularly do as we add people on, because again, it helps us to really have the right people in the right seats,
Mhm.
and to allow people to really blossom instead of always fight the current, from who they really are. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I love that. That's great. I'm real big fan of using the tools to help us build well-rounded teams.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of instruments and tools out there to help us do that. And I'm a real big fan.
Yeah.
So that's great that you use that.
Well, and the culture, like you said, is important too, because, we have some, key values that we came up with together. Who are we really? What are we all about? And are we showing those? I mean, you can say you have values, but they really show up in what you're actually doing. And so a lot of times, especially because I will tell you this, I mean, I told you earlier, 6 people on the team to 18 in a very short period of time. Yeah, we've had growing pains. We've had operational growing pains. We've had, team development growing pains where, it did end up that we had to part ways, with some folks because it just, didn't mesh or evolve like it really
Right.
needed to. So it's definitely been a work in progress, but that's where we strive, right? How about that? We strive to live up to our values.
No, that's awesome. That's great. We've really covered a lot of ground today. For those of you watching, I highly encourage you to save this and maybe watch it a couple of times. Terri's shared a bunch of really important things about not just her business, but just the approach to business and approach to team and leadership that are really important and key. So to wrap us up here, Terri, I've got just a few quick questions, kind of first answer, top of the head, probably the best.
Okay.
So first one is, what is your number one key to success?
Well, it's listening. It's actually listening. It's listening and really trying to hear and understand what someone is trying to convey, what you're dealing with, just pick the situation. But listening is super important because you need to know that and how to navigate.
Okay, awesome. So what is your number one piece of advice for other entrepreneurs, business owners?
Assess the risks, look at them, survey the land. And when you're, get comfortable, but know that it's not going to be 100%, and then just jump. Just jump. Just do it. What's the worst thing, right? Always, think of it like that. Just jump though, because a lot of that's actually my role in the family business is I'm the push.
Okay, awesome. Great. So what's a book you're reading to or listening to now or have listened to recently that you would recommend to other business owners to read and learn from?
Oh, I just finished a wonderful book, and it was actually written by an amazing friend and mentor of mine. It's called So What, Now What by Barbara Fagan, and it just got released recently. I was on the Ninja team to read it the first time, but it's just a wonderful tool to help people think through navigating change. And she's been in the industry for many, many years, in the coaching industry for many, many years. She's actually studied with Stephen Covey. So, she's an amazing person. She was actually the one who trained me initially on the certified lifestyle coaching program that I did through the American Academy of Anti-Aging, Regenerative, and Functional Medicine.
Okay, great. Love that. So if I had a magic wand, now I don't. So, but we're going to make believe here, and I could wave it over one area of your business and immediately improve it tomorrow. What part of your business would you like me to work on?
Well, I still think we struggle with awareness, even though earlier I told you that people come to see us, they've had word of mouth, that type of thing. But we still struggle with some awareness on some of the newer cutting edge services that we have added that really help amp up people's results. And I would love to work on that, to how to develop internal awareness in terms of more team training and patient awareness. Yeah, I'd like to ramp that up.
Okay, awesome. That's a great answer. All right, so before I get to my very last question, so people want to find out more about you, obviously, your website, medicaltransformationcenter.com, your Facebook page, same thing, Instagram, any other ways that people can learn more about you and what it means to be a patient and how it works.
Yeah. Well, our website, we actually have a YouTube channel too, and you can jump there off of our website. but we have, I will tell you the website, we've been working on that really intensely for about the last year and a half. I will tell you our website is very accurate, which I love about that. It's full of wonderful information. It accurately portrays what we do, especially as you start to get down into the other pages. The blogs are great. And in the YouTube channel, there's a lot of really good information in there to really expand that someone's horizons on what exactly is cellular and regenerative medicine.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Great. I'll make sure to include that, the YouTube channel. So, so very last question for us today. What is most inspiring to you right now?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, when, back to, the weariness sometimes the business owners can feel, it's like, oh, it's a business, da, 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 right? We'll get cards from patients or, just little notes or something like that. And when I'm reminded at a very grassroots level, because a lot of these folks, maybe I talked to initially, I used to do a lot of the intake calls. When I'm reminded of the impact that we've made in their life, that's actually what keeps me going. Because some days I'm not going to lie, I want to quit. I want to quit. But it's that, what we're doing, really there are very few people in the country that do it to this level, which is why we're out there teaching and training other providers in other cities and so forth. But that's what inspires me is, wow, now I can it's been 10 years since I've been able to have the energy to do that, or now I don't have pain all the time, or now, now I can function and not go to the bathroom, every 2 hours or whatever. There's just so many stories about that impact. That's actually what inspires me to keep going.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Really appreciate it. Well, this is listeners, this has been Terri Paige, CEO, co-founder of Medical Transformation Center, and she has shared so many good ideas and nuggets and about just what they do and how they help their patients. And so bookmark this, watch it a couple times. Terri, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and sign off now, and make sure you bookmark this, watch us a couple times, and then subscribe so you get notified when we drop our next interview. So thanks a lot, and everybody have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you.